is Community Unity Now, the D Tycoon Show. That's Bill Morton, president of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, and I am Trudy Leong, administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. Our very special guest today is Lani Montreal. She's an educator and playwright. Welcome, Lani.
Hello.
Welcome
Thank
to the
you
show.
for having me.
Oh, thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Well, you are an activist and you are a playwright, and then of course educator too, and that
A singer as well.
yes.
Yes.
So how? So what comes first? Is it the activism when you write a play? Like, are you thinking about a cause to address before you start writing the play?
Oh, wow. That is a good question. Yeah, I think in a sense, that comes first, right? Being an activist. And it's kind of like frames the work that I do. It has to touch upon social justice issues, art with a purpose, as they say, right? And so, yeah, I've never thought of that before, but now that you put it that way, I believe I am an activist first before an artist and an educator. I think it's all like part of that.
When you're with your students, do you wake up their minds toward the activism that their voice makes a difference, that their actions make a difference?
I believe so. I teach English composition and writing at the City Colleges of Chicago, and as an instructor, as a writing instructor, I urge them to always tell their stories, and to allow them to see the importance of their own experiences in the context of what's happening right now in the world or even in the city. How does that relate? How do their experiences relate to what's going on? Mm-hmm. And so in that sense, I do encourage them to take part, right? To be part of it, be part of the discourse. Because most of the time it includes them, but they don't, the people talk about them, but they don't get a chance to share their own voice.
So do you awaken their activism? Do you awaken their storytelling?
In a sense, yes, in a sense. I believe that's what I do as an educator, is to allow them to see that their stories are valuable, and that they do have a story to tell, right? Mm-hmm. And then, I think that's very important, is to allow them to ask the questions themselves, right? Because we always ask them questions. As educators, we're expected to come up with the questions, but then when they ask questions, I think that's when they start to realize that they also have a say. They can ask these questions, and they need to demand answers themselves.
So what about the shy ones? How do you, again, activate them to ask questions? How do you inspire them?
Oh, with the shy ones, I think they're the way to get them to engage them in the classroom is to provide these opportunities for them to write, right? So for instance, I show them a clip, or we read a text in the classroom that awakens their energy, their spirit, and then they want to talk about that particular piece of writing or a particular text. Even if it's, they're writing it down and they're too shy to speak out in class. Also, another way to get them more engaged is to make sure that they are, they're talking to each other, that, their group activities. Mm-hmm. So that's another way that I encourage them to speak out. Is they can't speak out in the big group, so maybe they will talk to each other in that small group and then come up with, shared experience, shared knowledge of a particular topic, and then they can share it in the class. So
And do you offer prompts for writing exercises?
I do offer them prompts for writing. Again, it could be a song, it could be a piece of literature, it could be poetry, it could be somebody else's writing or a video. That could be a prompt or just questions. And yeah, so.
Well, with your recent play, Panther in the Sky, you have that song at the end, and then was any of that the content of the song inspired by what you learned from the students?
I like what you said, what you learn from the students, because sometimes like we, a lot of, when I started teaching, I always say, I'm going to teach this, and I'm an instructor, but then you don't really emphasize the learning part of it. But I do learn a lot from my students, and sometimes they seep into or they inspire the plays that I write. So I would say yes, yeah, they do inspire some of the things that I write.
What about that little clip that you sent us?
Yes, I want to show that clip. Actually, it's towards the end. This play called Panther in the Sky. I started writing it almost 10 years or more than 10 years ago, and it's about gun violence and the impact of gun violence, on communities of color. And so I started writing it because I was inspired by the stories they tell, as an instructor. I started teaching actually with After School Matters. So we as part of Circup Intake, which is a Filipino-American theater group, we would have these workshops with young people in at-risk schools or neighborhoods, and then they would share their experiences about, gun violence. And so then this play was inspired by that, or at least it started there, and also being in the community and, sharing stories with other members of the community. And so this part that I hope to share with you, this is a play called Panther in the Sky, and we are actually touring it. We're hoping to tour it. It premiered last year at the Chicago Dance Theater, and this year we are going to bring it to different colleges in Chicago and hopefully in other parts of the U.S. And so this is a story about 4 mothers and their 4 sons, 4 mothers who lost their sons to gun violence. So we see the sons, and they're already in the afterlife, and they are just like any regular teenagers. They banter and they talk about, whatever, and then they also question, why did this happen to us? How did this happen to us? And so the mothers are there and they're mourning their sons. And so in this particular scene, I just tried to look for a scene where both the mothers and the sons are there. And this is towards the end where the mothers are, remembering their children, remembering their sons, and the moments that they had with them, the most memorable moments that they had with them. And so this is part of it. And then they sing this song, and then, I think that we should just show it.
Let's roll the clip.
He was going to be more, not afraid to open doors. He was my baby no more, ready to see what is in store. Now you're gone, but we're not alone, not alone. A multitude of voices ring, sound out the sounds of guns with song, to never stop remembering. Now you're gone, but we're not alone, not alone. A multitude of voices ring, to drown out the sounds of guns with song, to never stop remembering.
I was going to be more.
He was going to be more,
Not afraid to open doors.
not afraid to open doors.
Not afraid to
do your students know that you're a playwright, and do they know that you're trying to address gun violence?
I did mention it to them. It's just really difficult for them to come to the show because it's in the evening and it's after class, but that's why I'm bringing the show to my class. Well, I'm hoping to bring it to Malcolm X College where I teach, which is very close to here. It's right across the United Center. But yes, so hoping to bring the play to the city colleges of Chicago.
So how did you have the children post-human? How did you come up with that idea? And they're intelligent after life, and they're having conversations with one another. How did you come up with that concept?
Oh my goodness. I'm not sure. Oh, actually, the story started with the mothers first. I've been seeing these, news clips about another child taken by gun violence, and we see the mothers grieving and mourning their children and talking about what they were like when they were alive, and that was really moving to me when I saw those news clips. And so I said, maybe I'll do the play about these mothers. And also I was really inspired by the play For Colored Girls by Ntozake Shange, which is also a story of all these different women talking about their experiences of racism in different contexts, right? And so that was where I got the inspiration from, and it's a text that we read when I was doing an MFA at the Roosevelt in creative writing, and so. I thought that was a really powerful piece of text, of literature. And so we did the same play in Malcolm X College as well. And I was invited to read one of the monologues. And so just getting reacquainted with the text really inspired me to have this play about 4 mothers who they don't see each other because sometimes, we are all separate in our grief, right? And we don't see how we are connected and how our stories are connected to each other. And so the mothers grieve on their own and in their own spaces. And in this particular clip that we showed, that was when they actually came together, and now they see each other and the importance of really coming together in order to find comfort and heal, and also to speak out as a community.
So you're talking about closure.
Closure. That's awesome.
You're
Yes.
talking about
Thank
closure.
you.
And there is no solution after it's happened for the family.
Not really. No.
But is there a solution that's preventative that you can think of?
Well, that's why I think the play is open-ended and it asks those questions as well. There's a scene in the play where it's like a game show. So it's what they say, it's the comic relief in the play, because when you write a play about grief and about losing somebody, and it can get very heavy. And so then in that scene, the actors transform into these other characters where they're kind of like game contestants, game show contestants. And that was the topic. They have to say who said what. So I don't know. I think you remember this, Trudy, when you went to see the play.
Yeah, it went so fast. But yes.
So the play, the game show is called Who Said What? And so the contestants are supposed to say who said what. And the questions were all related to gun violence. And, who said that this would be the best solution for this problem, right? Or where did this issue come from? So it's really interesting. And really I want to invite the audience in that sense to also think about, what do you think is the solution, right? Because there are different ways that we can address the issue, right? But we also have to know where it came from. How did this come to be? Why are we in this predicament, right? And so I think that the play also kind of, invites the audience or challenges the audience to think about these issues. And so I don't think that the play itself, or if I propose an actual solution, but, the idea is to raise awareness and to involve the audience in the discourse of like gun violence, right? Yeah, so, and we did invite different organizations at the staging of the play. We had it at Chicago Dance Theater, and Elizabeth Adler, who's the executive director of Chicago Dance Theater, invited these organizations, and also Cerca Pintig, which is Ginger Leopoldo is our executive director. She also invited different organizations to come. We had like an organization that presented, how to well, not treat, but how to provide first aid for someone who's got, gun violence. And even the actors themselves, they participated in these workshops. And also there was Gifts of Hope, Israel's Gifts of Hopes, which is also an organization working to find support for families who were impacted by gun violence, who had, because it was founded by a mother and her daughter. It's called the Israel's Gift of Hope, who were also survivors of gun violence. And so now they're raising funds, and they're also reaching out to different communities and people who need the support.
You were a journalist at one time, and then it's so hard you have to be empathetic to understand what happened in the story, but then you have to be neutral. So how do you how do you walk that line between neutrality and empathy? And then how did your work as a journalist help you in your work as an educator and as a playwright?
Okay, that was a long time ago. But yes, I did. That was my first job, actually, was working for a magazine in the Philippines. And it's so strange because we always say, journalism, we have to be objective. But really, how do you do that? Because, humans are not always objective, and we're all influenced by our backgrounds and by the people around us, by the places where we were raised, right? And so that all comes into play when you write something. And so, it is very difficult to find that. But I think that to be an effective journalist, you have to be empathetic, right? You have to care, because your job is to make people care about what you're writing about, what you're reporting about. And so, I think it's a very important quality for a journalist to have empathy. And I think sometimes, it can also be like, when I was a journalist, I was really young at the time, and I was always so affected by what I see. And so it can also get in the way of being neutral when you write the story. And so then, do you want to be on this side, or, where you report, or do you want to be on the other side where, you're an activist and protesting what's going on in the world or in your community? And so that becomes very difficult, and that's why I decided to become a playwright.
Does that happen often, where you get emotional about a story, or a journalist gets emotional about a story, or gets involved in the story in some sort of way?
I think so. I mean, what do you think? You guys are also journalists. I see you guys as being journalists as well.
I can think of a couple examples, but in your experience.
Yes, definitely. I think so. I think I get, I can get very emotional, and then it does it does get into the work that you report, or even the choices of topics that you report on. It's like, you know, I want to do the story on this particular topic because I feel very strongly about it, right? And
And you have a new work now that's it's finished, but it's still you know, it's a work in progress, right? Your monologue.
Oh,
Want to
yeah,
talk
yes.
a little bit about that?
yeah, so I was born and raised in the Philippines, and so the play is about growing up in the Philippines with a mother who was a celebrity. She was in she played a character on Philippine television for 15 years. So it was during when, you know, formative years when, you know, I was still learning about the world, right? And so I there was a call for Links from Links Hall, which is, you know, an incubator, an artist incubator lab in Chicago. It's been around for 50 years, I believe. And so I submitted my application to work on this project because I always, ever since my mom passed away in March 2018, and ever since she passed away, I would always get people would always send me these video clips or stories about my mother. It's like, hey, I saw your mom. It's like, you know, and then they would send me a video clip, and I was like, oh, what am I supposed to do with this? I mean, in a sense, I feel very blessed because very fortunate that I could, if I miss my mom, I go to YouTube and look her up. It's like, oh, there's my mom. But then I said, you know, maybe there's something I need to do about this, and so that's how the idea for the project came to be. Is you know, I wanted to write this story about her, but because she was an actor, she was first a writer and then she was an actor. Then I need to maybe perform this piece because she was a performer. And so this is my first solo show. So
Yeah, we have only not too much time left. Let's
Oh,
run the
yes.
clip, and then you let the viewers know how they could learn more about you. Let's run the clip.
thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you.
For most of my life, I didn't think my mother knew what to do with us, her children. She was a prolific writer and a versatile actor, and we just happened to exist. Urged out of her reluctant womb, one by one, all four of us. She didn't cook or clean. She didn't speak sweet lullaby tones to put us to sleep at night. Instead, she mumbled urgent lines under her breath as she typed her script. Late into the night, the bang of metal keys against stenciled paper, the tinging of the bell at the end of a line. That's my lullaby. My mother was the provider. That's how she caregave. Not once with our crazy up and down finances. One birthday having a feast. Kare-kare, halabis na hipon, pancit manabon, fried chicken from Max. And then another, turning on the lights off and staying very still and quiet as the debt collector banged at the door. Not once did I worry that we would become homeless, hungry. All week she worked. And God forbid you so much as whisper in her ear, "Ma, kain na, dinner is ready." She would slap you or yell at you to go away. Ponya! That's her favorite swear word. Say it with me. Ponya! So colorful and crispy. In English, it means, actually there's no direct translation in English, but
Yeah, thank you so much, Lani. If our audience want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Oh yes, so please watch out for announcements of Panther in the Sky. We're touring it. Go to circupindig.org. And then for Anak Ni Tapia, Leaving Mother, you can also go there because we're going to be announcing that as well. And go to my Instagram, which is FierceFem27, or to my Facebook account, it's Lani Montreal. All right.
LaniMon.
Montreal. So it's like the city.
Okay. This is Bill Morton, President of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. I am Judy Leong, Administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce with Lani Montreal. Thank you so much for joining us on Community Unity Now, the D Tycoon Show. We'll see you again next week.